the excruciating pain, because I had a broken neck, a
Wow.
back, shoulder, ribs, femur, concussion, cuts everywhere. That was excruciating. The pain was excruciating, and I wasn't allowed anything, nothing. That was probably the worst of it all. And it literally, it feels like you're dying, because you
Wow.
basically are. And for the first day, they weren't sure if I was going to make it, because of all the injuries and the internal.
Welcome, everyone. And my host tonight on the show is Alwyn Uys. Now, Alwyn Uys, back in 2014, was in a car accident, and he actually broke or severed his eighth vertebra in his back, together with many other things. He became paralyzed. But this is the story of a man who basically faced all those challenges, and 4 or 5 years later, he was competing in many different athletic feats, and he's currently training for the Ironman, full Ironman. So that is incredible. So please, with no further ado, enjoy my talk with Alwyn Uys. You're not going to believe it. I didn't record that first bit.
Oh, okay. I see now the recording
because we went out, and then okay, it doesn't matter. We'll just keep on going.
Start it again.
So for people
Hey,
that
we can recap that again if you want.
No, we're gonna catch on everything again. So let's do that then. I've obviously researched now a little bit on your story. In fact, I actually got to know about your story first on Instagram. I think I somehow started following you on Instagram. I don't know how. I don't know how to do that, but and so I saw you guys doing that thing with Scala Brits last week. Was it 3 weekends ago?
It's a few weekends ago. Yeah,
in Pretoria. So we'll get to that as well,
and
speak about Scala. So let's go back briefly and first, even before the accident, I would like to know where you're from. You you were born in the Eastern Cape, if I'm right?
Yes.
Okay, and then just give me like a brief rundown of your youth before we get to varsity.
Yeah, so typical farm boy, small town. Grew up in St. Francis.
No ways.
Yeah,
that place is beautiful.
Yeah. Yes, I love it there. Honestly, I want to move back there one day. But for now, work is keeping me in Cape Town.
I was there for the last 2 Decembers. I was in St. Francis for holiday, man, and I'm very grateful because I've been going with friends of mine. They've all got family and kids, so I kind of I'm also one of the kids in there because I'm the only single guy. Yeah. So that place is amazing, man. The Eastern Cape, and in particular that part, is, in my opinion, compared to Cape Town, one of the most beautiful places in the country, man.
No, absolutely. And it's over December, it's crowded, but throughout the year, it's very chilled, and there's almost no one there. That's why I can't stay there right now. For my career, I have to be in Cape Town and be in the cities. But yeah, that's where I come from. I grew up there, typical farm boy, and went to small school there, Niku Milan. But yeah, I always loved sport, into outdoors and that kind of stuff, adventurous stuff, real, boy stuff in playing kakmakertjie. So always into that kind of stuff. And at school, I really loved rugby. I did athletics as well, high jump, far jump, and sprinting and all that kind of stuff. But rugby was by far the most fun for me, and obviously wanted to pursue a career in that. From there, I went to the Sharks Academy in 2009. Played there for a year, and then I went to Marty's to study, and then also play for them as well.
2009. Was I still there?
I don't.
I know. You know what? In 2009, I played for Western Province. So. No, I played for Western Province. That was my last year.
Yeah.
Was it? I'm so confused right now. I can't even remember No, anyway.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah. Long time ago. What did you play? What position?
8th man.
Ah. How tall are you?
184.
Okay.
So probably not the tallest for 8th man on that league, but at school it was,
Mm.
it was tall enough, but I'm quite fast, so I think that played definitely in my favor. Or number 7.
Yeah.
I was a bit too big to play open side flanker, so it's always number 7 or 8. Which I preferred.
What an amazing time. I mean, listen, I have to be honest with, I'm a bit embarrassed to say I don't watch a lot of rugby, man, but the World Cup last year was just flipping phenomenal, wasn't it? What a good time for rugby in this country.
No, it's unbelievable. And I think the effect that it had, on the country and everything is phenomenal.
Mm.
Our country can come together and just see that passion and everything. I think that's what sport is about. That's what I love the most about sport, is the emotion that it can bring and how it can bring people together and, that unity. And I think that's also why, ever since I was little, I had the dream of, representing my country and what I do. And that's a big honor. It's massive.
Absolutely. So for me, I mean, it's a great thing that we won the World Cup. That's fantastic. For me, the biggest thing there, and everyone probably say this, but the fact that we had a black captain that deserved his position fully, in my opinion. So I've got an opinion on. Listen, we don't want to talk too much rugby, but I've got an opinion.
Yeah.
I still think that right now rugby is viewed by the biggest part of the African community as still a white man's sport. I really do think so. And I say this because rugby is mostly viewed on super sport. And if you are honest with yourself, you've got to acknowledge that not many of the people can afford super sport. So not a lot of them watch rugby, right? So
I can't even afford DSTV, so I don't blame you.
So there we go. But then it's a business. So rugby needs super sport. They need the money. They need unfortunately need it. So it's a difficult thing, man. For me, the ideal would be if you can have the rugby on all channels and every single person in this country can watch rugby and love the game, and therefore you'll have so many kids in rural areas coming out playing, and within a few 10, 15 years you'll have unbelievable pool of talent, and there's so much talent out there, but unfortunately it's still viewed as I must be very careful because it's very political, but a white man's sport or a sport for people that has got money. So yeah, man, there's so much talent out there. So the brilliant thing for me is to have Sia and the other guys and the other black guys come and play well and win the World Cup.
No, absolutely.
So we were talking about your rugby,
and then out on a lot of talentful players.
Yeah. Sorry, we're talking about your rugby, and then I interrupted you. Talk to me further.
Yeah, well, I think the highlight of my school rugby career is I played against Sia Kulusi, actually. He was in grade PE, and when we were still allowed to play against grade PE because we come from a small school. So, yeah, they just destroyed us. But, I must say it's actually incredible. A lot of people say, like you said, he has a merit to play there. You have a new, perspective of things if you've actually played against that person. And that was at a very young age. Obviously, I've seen him, through the ranks and stuff, but it's actually so cool, to have that opportunity to play against these players. And now they, World Cup winning Springboks. It's actually incredible. Like Kobus Reinach, he was our scrum half in under 19. So, yeah, it's actually amazing, how people's careers develop and, where they are today. And it makes me actually proud to be, in that era, that you were a part of and you were playing amongst them. But my life took a completely different direction.
Sure.
Took me away from rugby, but it kept me in sport. And that took me also a very long time to realize that, God still has a purpose for me in sport.
Mm.
Doesn't matter if you're in a wheelchair or not. He made me to love sport, and the purpose is to stay in sport. Yeah.
Right. So let's go back to the day of your accident. Tell me what happened there.
Yeah. So, and the funny thing is, you always think these things can't happen to you. And that's a typical situation of this. It was, I was on my way to a girl I was dating at the time, and it was Friday the 13th of December 2014.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah. And it was, what was the time? More or less like 7, 8-ish. It was still light outside. I was driving from St. Francis to Kirkwood, and I just took my eyes for a split second off the road, and I lost control, flipped the car. I wasn't wearing a safety belt because I had a shoulder injury from rugby, and my arm was in a sling. And yeah, in the process, fell out the window, broke my back, and you wake up next to the car only a few minutes later, and you can't get up. And then life is just never the same after that.
Sorry, I was saying, so with the accident, were you conscious all the time, or were there a time when you eventually just went under, or how did that go?
Yeah, so I was briefly unconscious. So I lost consciousness when the car started flipping and my head went through the passenger window. I remember that because as the ground was coming closer and I hit the ground, then I lost consciousness. And probably 20 minutes after that, because it was still light outside, and I remember looking at the time of the car, 20 minutes after that, when they found me, then I woke up again. So it's for that brief moment I was unconscious, and I got into the ambulance, and then I lost consciousness. It was like in and out of consciousness the whole time. And then the next morning, then I was completely fine again. Obviously had some heavy concussion, so you can't remember everything and your memory is foggy. But yeah, other than that, perfectly conscious.
So how fast were you driving? Can you remember?
Yeah, probably about 70, 70 k's an hour.
At 70 k's an hour, off the road, flip, you fall out of the car. Who found you there?
Yeah. A man with the name of Hosea, and I've never seen him again, to be honest.
Really? How do you remember his name?
Something I just won't forget. I remember him telling me his name, and I never saw him again.
Okay, so then he phoned the ambulance.
From my phone, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and ambulance came, and then when everyone arrived, so by now you can't move. Could you move your body or your?
No.
So you knew?
Not at all. Well, I thought it was shock because you hurt yourself really bad, but you're not sure the extent of the injuries, and you're in a lot of pain, and you think it's shock, so you just actually lie still, because you don't want to hurt yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so go for it.
The funny thing is, when he found me, he told me I hurt my back really bad. I don't know how he knew that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how he knew that.
Okay,
and
so
I just remember the conversation, but only months afterwards, then I thought back of it, and I was like, how did he know that? It's crazy, yeah. But okay, I'd have to show you the accident photos, and you can actually see the whole scene. You wouldn't understand how could someone be alive after that, looking at the car and everything. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's honestly a miracle that I just made it out of the car crash. Yeah.
Okay, so the ambulance arrives. You in the ambulance. This is where you kind of go in and out of consciousness. Go to the hospital, and obviously there you probably sedated. They put you under. You wake up the next morning. This is where your real.
Actually, well, the funny thing is, I wasn't allowed to be sedated because they didn't know the extent of the injuries. Until a doctor is present and checked you out, you're not allowed to get any pain medication or anything. And that was the worst of it all, the excruciating pain, because I had a broken neck, a back, shoulder, ribs, femur, concussion, cuts everywhere. That was excruciating. The pain was excruciating, and I wasn't allowed anything, nothing. That was probably the worst of it all. And it feels like you're dying, because you basically are. And for the first day, they weren't sure if I was going to make it, because of all the injuries and the internal bleeding and everything. It was pretty rough. And that, as you said earlier, and that's only from driving 70 k's an hour. No, it's.
Imagine you were going at 130 or 140. Do you think it would have been? Do you think it could have been? I mean, listen, forgive me for saying this, but do you think it could have been different if you had your safety belt on? Because I am a culprit. I'm guilty for not wearing my safety belt 20% of the time. I forget. I'm busy. I jump in, and then halfway down the road, my safety belt.
Yeah. I honestly don't know, and it doesn't actually bother me to think about it, because when I look at the car and I look how the roof is dented in, I might have hurt my head and I might have got brain damage. And to me, the biggest gift is that my mind is fine.
100%. Yes.
My mind is fine. Even after my accident, I finished my honors degree in financial management. Wow. And that is just a blessing on its own, because when I was in hospital, I saw people with brain injuries. And that is, if you can't speak and feed yourself and recognize your own parents, that's something that's really sad to me. Makes me quite emotional, actually, to think that someone is there, but they're actually not there anymore. So I'm just happy that my mind is actually fine, and I'm grateful for what I still have, even though it's just half of my body. It's still more than a lot of people have. There's always someone worse off than you.
Well, that's beautiful, because it's all about gratitude, Alwyn. It's about something I also learned in my life, unfortunately very late in my life, is that if one can be grateful for, or if you can identify the small things that you must be grateful for in life, then the bigger things is so much better.
You actually have to.
Often before, I would often be unhappy, but at the time I was earning a massive salary. I was playing a sport. Every kid that plays sport wants to do what I were doing, and yet I missed those things a lot of the time because I was too worried about other rubbish. I wasn't being grateful for the small important things. So for me, in fact, my last 2 years have been I've had a great drive on being grateful, waking up in the morning, meditating. At least once a week, I want to meditate on gratitude. In my mind, I want to sit on that couch and just go through, what am I grateful for? Well, listen, I've got food today in this country where so many people don't have food. I've got an apartment, etc., whatever. I mean, the small things, not always striving for the Lamborghini or flying first class or whatever, but just identifying those small things. And then all of a sudden, when you really, sorry, man, I'm rumbling on. But for me, it became a thing. Once you really identify those small things that you must be grateful for, the bigger things become so much better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're in the hospital, a day or two later, you wake up. This is now where I want to start talking to you, because this, I would imagine, is where your challenges start now, right?
Yeah. That's where you think it starts, but actually the most difficult part is going home. In hospital, everything was still, very hopeful, and you're busy with rehab and all these kind of things. And then it's fine. People come visit you. There's constantly someone with you. At some stage, I actually wished I just want to be alone for a change. For a day. I just want to be alone.
I also want to ask, so at that time now, when people come to you, because there's always listen, even for me, when I go visit someone in the hospital, there's that time there where it's difficult for people to visit someone in the hospital, right? And so you as a patient sometimes you pick that up because they treat you different and they don't know what to say. Isn't it also like a difficult time there?
Yeah, it is. Like people look at you with, it's almost like a shame kind of look.
Yes, yes,
It's helpless. They can't do anything for you.
yes.
And that was to me, yeah, that was heartbreaking because yes, it is bad, and it still is bad, and it was bad. It's very tragic what happened. But I still have my life. I can still do a lot.
Yeah.
And people look at you like you can do nothing for yourself and you lost everything. And yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
It's a difficult feeling to explain.
Yeah, for sure. So now so when you say you go home, do you go home to mum and dad or somewhere else?
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so
I went home to them.
yeah, go for it.
So I moved back into the house with my mom and dad, or my stepmom and my dad, and that was actually the most difficult part of it all, because then you go home and it's your comfort zone. You're looking forward to going home, and then you get home and everything doesn't work the way it should work. The bathroom isn't equipped for you. You can't even go in by the front door because there are steps, and that was a very difficult thing to deal with. You're looking forward to go home into your comfort zone, and then it's taken away from you. So that is a very difficult thing to deal with. And then also your friends and family, they don't come and visit that often anymore. It happened over December holiday, so all the family were in the area, which I'm very fortunate about. But after that, life goes on. And then it actually settles in that, look, this is my life, and it's my problem. I have to deal with it. But when I say problem, I actually mean that it's only my responsibility to take charge of my life. And I think a lot of people don't do that after stuff happen. They don't take responsibility for their own lives, because no one's going to make it better except you.
So were you at the time you weren't working, you were studying, or you haven't started studying yet?
Then I was finished studying. I finished studying that year, and I started working that year as well, because I had a shoulder injury, as I said, from rugby. So I stopped playing rugby that year, and I started working.
Okay, and you're working where?
That's when it happened. Me and my dad worked together.
Okay,
so in fruit exports.
Okay, cool. So you're working for your dad, and so now the accident happened, out of the hospital, you back with your dad. So did you start working immediately again, or not yet?
Yeah, so I was in hospital rehab for 3 to 4 months. Then I got home probably the Thursday, Friday. That Monday I went back to work, because I can't just sit in my room at home not doing anything. So I went back to work, even though it was just for a few hours every day. It was just to get out and start, get my mind working again, just to feel that I can actually contribute to, something again, and not feel that helpless feeling, when people looked at me, and not to live in that feeling that they expressed.
You, on one of your videos, I saw you talking about going through a very, or in fact, let me ask the question differently. Was there a time where you thought, okay, listen, this is too hard for me, I don't want to do this anymore? And was there a moment where everything changed for you from the accident, somewhere in the middle, and from where you are now? I mean, with everything you do now, where was the pivotal changing point? What happened there, and what was going on in your mind?
Yeah, so I have to take you back. So, but before my accident, I was a very perfectionist person, in the sense of you don't want to make a mistake. So you have the fear of failure. So you don't want to risk too much. You don't want to risk too much. And after the accident, yes, there was a time it just got to me, everything. It was just too much. And I actually thought about, committing, well, I wouldn't say, actively committing suicide, but, thoughts like that went through my mind, and just thinking, how could this happen to me? How could this possibly be my life at this stage? And there was a pivotal moment. As I said, I thought about stuff like, I can't handle this anymore. This is just too much. And there was a realization that you write your own story. So I could have given up there. But what are my options really? Am I just going to sit in my room the whole day and that's my life? And then everyone's just going to remember that from me. Being in a small town, a decent rugby player, and then the accident happened, and that is just it. And then the story just ends right there. And that just got to me, that how could it just end there? Because I have big dreams. I still have big dreams. Obviously, they've changed, but at that stage, you're 24 years old and you have big dreams and aspirations and things you want to do, and you're ambitious, and everything gets stripped away from you. And that's heartbreaking. I just couldn't deal with that. I couldn't allow that to actually happen. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because I also realized that, look, I've actually lost already everything. So I've nothing left to lose. You're already at rock bottom, and that's a great place to start building again on a solid foundation.
Yes.
Because then all the pride is gone, all the fluff is gone, all the status is gone. You're already right at the bottom. You can't lose, anything anymore. That's like, if you think of a rugby game or any sports game, specifically rugby, I know in school, like you're almost cautious to take the ball because you don't want to knock the ball or make a mistake. Well, after that moment, it was more like, well, give me the ball and I'm going to run with it now because I need to make the team, And that was just the mentality that I had, and I just went for it. And amazing things happen when you just go for it, when you're fearless to pursue your dreams and make, something out of your life. And as I said, the people just started supporting me for what I do. How I'm not letting it just, dominate my life and end my life right there. It's like a good comeback story. Everyone loves the underdog, and there's nothing, worse that could almost happen to a sports person that's physically active and loves running, and then he ends up in a wheelchair. So I know for you that, you were a rugby player by profession. I think you can relate, like, mentally what that would do to you. You can't even think about it.
It's absolutely, but it must be one of the hardest things ever, because if you get taken away from you, that makes you that it makes you run on your legs. So I can only think how tough it must be. 100%.
Yeah.
So
no, it's crazy, and it happens overnight. That's also the thing. The one day you can do anything, and the next day it's taken away from you.
Yeah.
You feel robbed. Honestly, that's actually how it feels.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And this is something that happened with me. I realized through a difficult time that a lot of that got me out of it was the people around me. I really at the time had to shed some of my friends, ones that weren't benefiting me. Are you okay?
Yeah. I'm just doing pressure care. My gat raak lam.
Okay.
I'm lifting myself up.
That's fine. So I had to shed a few of the people around me, and I had to make sure that my close circle of friends are really there to benefit me. Did you have a good bunch of people around you, and do you still have a good bunch of people around you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've always surrounded myself with good and positive, people and influences. The negative stuff will always, work itself out of your life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went through a stage, but that was after my accident where, I started, losing a bit of, grip on my life, where you've gotten through the worst, but then, that kind of depression, or, it comes back to steal.
Sure.
And I definitely went through a stage where, then you go out with friends and you drink a lot and that kind of stuff, because it's almost like a normal cycle if you don't keep it in check.
Yes.
So yes, I went through those kind of things, but yeah, luckily, I got saved from that.
Yeah. So and this is something I've learned as well. In tough times, in times of hardship, that is the time that you really learn and you really grow. So, and everyone's hardships is different, right? So yours is different from mine, but at the time, that hardship is the worst thing for that person.
Yeah.
But that moment, if you can get yourself to, like you've done, make the decision to say, right, okay, this is bloody tough. It's fucking hard right now, but you know what? My life is better, or I need to work for my family, or whatever. And if you can start, get yourself out of that, that is the power. That is the golden bit there of growing. That's when you really learn. And that's what I found with what happened with me. That bit there is the beautiful bit where you grow as a person and as a human being. Don't you find that?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's difficult to realize that in the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
It's near impossible. It's near impossible. But absolutely, that is where you grow the most. And if you can look back, once you've made it through, you can look back at those moments and you can realize, geez, look at the person that I've actually become through all that pain, right? Through that crushing.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier going forward when stuff like that happens again. Like, to me, it's very easy just to keep my cool if something happens in life, because I know, look, I've been through much worse. This is nothing, and I know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And it will figure itself out. So that changed me for life, and that, I think that also just comes with maturity. If you've been through those kind of situations. Yeah.
So at what stage now did you decide that, okay, because you're not only doing triathlons, you do rowing, cycling. At what stage now did you decide, right, okay, well, we said you already decided you're not going to stay there. So what was the next thing now? I've got to do something. And how did you decide on those sports?
Yeah, so, okay, I got back to living first, and then I went back to work. And then the next step was I was doing therapy throughout the whole process.
Right. When you say therapy?
Therapy can be quite boring. That's just, strengthening your body, keeping your core strong, stability, that kind of stuff. But it gets quite boring, especially if you come from a background of sport and you want to be active and you want to be fit. And once those endorphins start flowing again, you just can't stop it. And that's when I got into some more serious stuff. So for me, it was rowing, because that was the most accessible to me at that stage. And I contacted, I think it was Eastern Cape Rowing, and they actually pulled me into their team, and I got on an indoor rower, which I could do every day at my house. And that got me into sport. It got me keen for sport again. So rowing was the first sport that I did. And I just transitioned from that to cycling, and then from cycling to Ironman. But that's the short story. It's the cycling was just a cross training for the rowing. Just because if you look into Paralympic sport, it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world that you don't know of as an able-bodied person. So once I started learning these things, it's like a kid in a candy store where, I can actually still cycle, or I can go running, or I can swim. I can do all these things. You can do horse riding, archery, whatever you want. And I liked cycling before, but it just looked really fun, the speed and the adrenaline. And I met up with some friends, and it's something we can do together. So that's how I got into cycling. And from that, I've always had the idea of doing an Ironman when I was able-bodied.
So can I stop you? So,
Yeah.
so when you talk about cycling, explain to me how it's not the one you lie on your back. Is that the one?
It is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you lie completely on your back, and it's called in a recumbent position.
Yeah.
And then you cycle with your arms.
Okay. Together.
Yeah, so your feet out in front of you. Yeah, together, just because you can push harder, from without your back and your chest.
Okay.
With two at the same time. Yeah. So that's the cycling part of the Ironman. And as I said, I've always wanted to do an Ironman, but I was a bit, hesitant because it's just something that's actually so crazy, the distances that you have to do. Yeah, and it's crazy, but that's how my mind just changed about this whole thing where, look, I've overcome paralysis. I'm pretty sure I can do an Ironman. And it's a dream that I've always had. And I've also realized that, life is short, especially if you've gone through something like this. You realize how short life is. And that just made me fearless in the pursuit of that dream. To actually go for it, to start training for it, and make it a reality. What the difficult thing is that no paraplegic in South Africa has done it, and that was the difficult thing, because it's a mental block.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a mental block that, okay, but who do you talk to? How do you find out how to do these things? So that was also another big hurdle, because whenever you speak to someone, they're kind of like amazed and think you're crazy at the same time, just because no one has done it in our country. In the world, people have done it, but not in our country, not a South African.
Well done, bud. Well done. I didn't know that. Well done. Nice.
Yeah. So to me, that was just more of an incentive to, okay, but I got to go for this then.
Yeah.
If there's one person that can do it, then, I will nominate myself to do this.
And you did it, and you did it in the time that you wanted to. So there was one in Durban. Was that in Durban?
Yeah, that's the half one. So in 8 weeks, we're doing the full one. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I honestly cannot wait, because it is in Port Elizabeth, and I come from close to Port Elizabeth. It feels like, I'm going back 5 years later. My accident was 5 years ago. And I'm going back to the place where I was in hospital, where I got operated, where I was in therapy for 4 months. And now I'm going to do an Ironman. So mentally, that is, yeah, it's such an emotional, journey.
That's crazy, man.
In 5 years. Yeah, so I'm really excited. Honestly, I cannot wait for it. I've worked hard, and I'm just ready, to test myself, to test my mind, because that's what it is. Ironman is a lot in the mind, and so is paralysis. So
yeah, well, so is everything in life. Listen, I can't speak about paralysis but
yeah,
we live. And I read this most amazing thing the other day, and they were saying that we live most of our lives in our mind. So this water that I'm tasting, I taste it with my taste buds, but it ends up in my mind. My mind works the taste, and it tells me it tastes well. Everything I touch, I feel, I see, everything is in my mind. If someone says something bad to me, and I get an emotional reaction on it, it's in my mind. So we live in our minds most of the time. And it's how we control these things, our emotions in our minds. It's all in here. And I do a talk, and I always say this, and I'm saying to the people, if someone say to me tomorrow, AJ, you're an arsehole and you're a ginger and you're ugly, that's probably not cool from him. But if it affects me, that's my fault. At the end of the day, have got total control over what affects me or not. It's hard. It's not easy if someone's rude or ugly to you, or if something happens that's that you don't have control over. But at the end of the day, we do have the ultimate control of the emotion in this body and in this mind. So yeah, you're spot on. But it is not easy. It's hard. Life
But
is hard.
that's actually the cool thing. So you actually giving that statement power, or you taking it away?
Yes.
Completely. It's
Yes.
100% up to you, because that person can just say it. He can't give it power and he can't take it away. That's you.
Yes. Straight back at
Yeah.
you. That's it. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So tell me this: I was just thinking before, when you swim, did you have to learn to swim a different way? Because I would imagine swimming, you kick and your upper body stays up, and now if you can't kick, is that a special? Do you have to do something different?
So I always swim with a wetsuit, a full wetsuit. It is a bit of a mission to put it on every time, but I can't swim without the buoyancy. So I just put on a full wetsuit, and I tie my legs together. Even when I swim in a pool. So that is the way that I train, and that's the way that I swim. I think fortunately and unfortunately, I wasn't a swimmer before. So I had to learn to swim from scratch. So yeah, maybe that's a good thing, because the stroke is different. The cadence at what you swim is different. I rely on the buoyancy of my body to keep me up, and not the propulsion of my legs as you would. So I do swim differently, but yeah.
Would you say that you are now stronger in your upper body than ever before?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But also, the biggest difference is the mental aspect of it.
Sure.
Because I've been in sport all my life, I know where my limits were, especially playing rugby. You know, when you get tired, when you stop, when you train, and it's so cool to see how differently I can train now, and how I can push my body at this stage, compared to, you know, where I was, where you think you're strong when you play rugby first team or whatever, but you actually have no idea what you're capable of.
Yeah.
Until you get pushed to that point.
Yes. Yes. I hear what you're saying. When we are in a kind of a comfort area or zone, we push ourselves just to the edge of that, and then if the ceiling gets raised, the bar, we will go again. And so as humans, we don't just, if that's the bar, we don't just go to there. We'll just go there all the time, right? And that's what you're saying. And now all of a sudden you have to really push yourself out of this comfort zone.
Yeah. Well, I think something that I read of Professor Tim Noakes, where he talks about the central governor.
Yeah.
In your mind, and that's just, well, the simplification probably of it is just the mind's mechanism of protecting itself. Like when you're tired, where you're gonna want to stop. And I know David Goggins also has a book, You Can't Hurt Me. I think that's very interesting, where he talks about you push yourself past that point.
Yeah.
You know, that just that few percent every time.
Yeah.
And it's something I try and incorporate, especially in my sessions, where you feel like you want to stop, or you want to throw up, or you can't go anymore. Well, what if you just don't stop? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And once you realize that, hey, look, I didn't actually die.
Yeah.
There's something that switches in your brain, and you see yourself, well, okay, my mind said I should stop, but I didn't, and I'm still fine.
Yes.
So let's see how far we can push it.
Yes.
And to me, that's something. It's a constant process. You have to, every session, you have to push yourself.
Yeah.
It's mental training.
Listen, that Goggins is a crazy boss today.
Yeah, but it's incredible what your mind is capable of. I'm fascinated by it. It's
100%.
It's incredible.
Do you follow Dr. Joe Dispenza at all?
I do, yes.
He's phenomenal for me. I mean, he's a lot of the stuff that I've kind of learned and changed in the last few years is from him. His stuff, I find him phenomenal.
Yeah, no, he makes you very aware of of your thoughts and what you say and what you do.
Big time.
You must check out Dr. Caroline Leaf as well. Very interesting. She has more a Christian background going into her stuff, but she's also a neuroscientist, extremely knowledgeable about everything, and it's amazing. Once you realize how strong your thoughts are, you don't just think anything, you don't just say anything.
Yes.
And as you say, you spend most of the time in your own mind. That's why it's so important to actually understand your mind and understand your thoughts and take them captive.
Yes.
That is the most important thing of it all. Don't let your mind just run rampant, because that's that's very bad for you.
No, because what you think will manifest. What you think will manifest. So that's the danger.
Absolutely.
So your bakkie, is your bakkie special? Is it fixed? So it's a special driving system?
Yeah, it's very basic actually. It's just a automatic bakkie, and then they put in a hand control. So you can still drive it with your feet, but I just drive it with my hands. It's very basic. It's almost like a boat. You just push and pull, petrol and brake.
So it's one lever that's the accelerator and the brake.
Yeah, very basic.
Okay, that's interesting.
Forward and backwards.
I always wondered how would that work.
Yeah, no, it's very basic, honestly.
And now, in terms of your movement around, you comfortable. I mean, you know. I mean, I see you fly. You go up and down escalators. It's become just your second nature.
Yeah, it's a new normal.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yes, that's a good
normal.
word.
Yeah.
That must. Yeah, but it must have been a little bit hard to just a crossover, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're very cautious in the beginning, but after you've fallen out of your chair a few times, and it becomes relatively easily. You realize I'm not going to die, so you got to try these things. And also, you want to live. You can't just live in this little box the whole time. So this pushes you out of that comfort zone.
Work-wise, are you still with? You're not with your dad. You don't work with your dad. What do you do now?
No, full-time athlete.
Full-time athlete. Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure whether you're full-time athlete or you're still working or not. So, and your sponsors, who are your sponsors?
We still actually, how can I say, fixing up a few for Ironman. But at the moment, it is Biogen is the main sponsor. Vodacom is also a big sponsor. And then I have a few triathlon brands that are involved, like Zone 3 wetsuits, Stellenbosch Triathlon Squad. There's Track, which is Best Bikes here in Durbanville.
Yeah.
And then a few other smaller stuff like my dogs get Hills pet food.
Oh, nice.
Stuff like that. So
how important were they for you?
Well, at that time, I just had the border collie, the black border collie, and I got him before my accident. So to me, it was so cool to have him, come visit me when I was in hospital, because their emotional intelligence is incredible. He can see that you're hurting and you can't do what you used to do. And they just adapt, They just adapt. And I think the significant thing is that they don't see you differently at all. They still love you just as much.
Unconditional.
Yeah. Where people would always, they can look at you differently and stuff, but a dog can't. You're just the same.
Yeah.
And that is pretty cool, I must say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm a dog person. I've always had dogs, and went through a divorce a few years ago, and I have to tell you, those my dogs at the time were just flipped. Without them, they filled that void, man. And like you say, unconditional, like they were just there all the time for you, So when I saw your dogs on one of the videos, I thought, shit, that's pretty cool that you had that connection and support from those animals.
Yeah. Yeah, I know they're like best friends. Sure, amazing.
Right. So the full Ironman in how many weeks?
7 weeks technically.
And what's your time that you want to do it in?
I want to do it. Yeah, I'm aiming for under 13 hours. Yeah,
Wow.
for the first one. Yeah,
Wow.
but it's very dependent on the weather on the day. That I realize now in East London Ironman, which I did a week ago, where I didn't make the bike cutoff actually, which was it's not a setback because I had an amazing day racing. It was a very good day racing. The weather conditions were just terrible. It's the worst weather they had in 8 years.
So what was the worst, the sea or wind? Running on
the wind on the bike was the worst, but the wind picked up obviously in the ocean while we were swimming. So the last 600 meters were very tough, but I'm comfortable swimming in the ocean. So for me, yes, I swam slower, but I wasn't under pressure, or I wasn't too worried about it.
Yeah.
But I knew we were in for trouble because the wind picked up. I knew the bike was going to be very tough, and obviously I came in. I did the full bike course, but I wasn't allowed to go on the run. So it took me some time to process it, but luckily you don't win every rugby game. That is how it works. So I was just motivated to come back stronger, and that wasn't my A race for the year. The full Ironman is my A race for the year.
Yeah.
So I'm taking the positives out of that day, and I'll go back for it next year. I want to go back for it, and finish it strong. Yeah.
Listen, Alwyn, I'm a fan, man, and I wish you flipping all the best, and you inspire me, and you'll inspire still a lot of people in the future. So I back you, Pelly. Good luck, and I'll be watching you on social media.
Yeah.
Thank you for chat talking to me, champ.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And look, like every time I talk to people, about these kind of things, I think it puts it a lot into perspective for myself as well. I also learn something every time. You keep on growing. You can always learn from people, and that's the amazing thing in life. You'll always keep on learning till the day that you die.
And also, you know what? Something I thought about before. 100%, but something you said, I thought about before, is vulnerability. You are also. I'm thinking, right? You're doing these videos. You're vulnerable in your situation, but that is, again, that's like when the chips are down. If you can be vulnerable in those moments, and you can be vulnerable in front of people, that's when, firstly, you learn, and secondly, the people around you. People know vulnerability. People know authenticism. When someone is authentic, then people can relate to you, and that's what you're doing. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure, man. Thank you, and thank you for having me.
No problem. We're going to keep in touch. We'll chat again one of these days on the podcast.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, brother.
All right. Have a good evening.
Cheers, boy. Bye-bye.
Ciao.